In this video, we present our work under the neighborhood Hyperlocal Surveillance on Nextdoor. This work represents an interdisciplinary collaboration and uses both quantitative and qualitative methods to uncover surveillance patterns and norms on Nextdoor and the relationship to neighborhood gentrification trends. We'll start by providing some context that motivates our work. Nextdoor is a hyperlocal social platform for geographically defined communities. On Nextdoor, users post a wealth of information, often personal or private, about themselves and others to their neighborhood feed. On the platform, users voluntarily share information towards a goal of broader community organizing and safety. Notably, 59% of adults who get local news from social media reported that they primarily do so through online forums or discussion groups. Human-computer interaction scholars have endorsed the potential benefits of local social media platforms for capital exchange and community building, but also their potential harms. Work on local online communities has shown that they can be fruitful spaces to mobilize resources. But despite their growing importance, local online spaces are not well understood as they are often private and segmented. In recent years, Nextdoor has been the focal point of numerous journalistic investigations. The media has highlighted instances of user posts on Nextdoor which fixate on suspicious activity carried out by others or outsiders that disproportionately target people of color. Prior academic work on similar Nextdoor applications show how deceptive design patterns can exacerbate neighborhood fear. Other scholars have investigated racial issues, particularly focusing on Nextdoor's role in perpetuating inequality and exclusion, and there is also quantitative work that demonstrates correlations between economic disparities and discourse on crime within Nextdoor communities. Another early qualitative study of Nextdoor use demonstrates that users feel the demarcation of neighborhoods could be restrictive. More broadly, scholars argue that the strict fragmentation of neighborhoods on Nextdoor can lead to digitally gated communities, where physically proximate neighborhoods do not interact with each other online. These findings suggest that the process of representing geographic communities online is always socioeconomically charged. This framing leads us to two concrete research questions. First, what are the patterns of community surveillance and user-generated posts within Nextdoor neighborhoods? And second, is there a relationship between neighborhood gentrification trends and types of community surveillance posts? We choose Atlanta as our site of inquiry because of its position as a critical site in the history of U.S. race relations. Atlanta has been subject to rapid urban development and gentrification in certain neighborhoods, which has led to significant changes in its social fabric and raised issues related to displacement, inequality, and community identity. Atlanta is also demographically diverse, with high income inequality, which prior work suggests may influence the creation and distribution of crime and safety posts on Nextdoor. Finally, there are multiple prior studies that have analyzed local social spaces in Atlanta, and as such, existing work on Nextdoor and the crime reporting app Citizen provide an important foundation for our work.
We take overall a mixed method approach to analyzing community surveillance posts made on Nextdoor. First, we construct a dataset of gold standard community surveillance posts and develop a qualitative codebook to tag these posts. We then associate each post with neighborhood-level metadata. Finally, we use a specific analysis method that allows us to visualize codes and quantitative tags together in the same two-dimensional space, from which we construct our final typology of Nextdoor community surveillance posts to help us identify the different types of posts. First, we sought to establish this gold standard dataset of community surveillance posts. We consider community surveillance posts to be any post that is related to enforcing community norms, surveillance, safety, and crime. From Nextdoor, we first collect all posts made to all Nextdoor neighborhoods in Atlanta between March 2022 to March 2023. This yielded about 50,000 posts overall. We then use a set of computational steps to filter these posts to a collection of posts that we think are most likely to be related to community surveillance. As a final step, we manually assess whether each post should be included in our gold standard dataset. In all, we're left with 1,537 posts related to community surveillance for further analysis. We sought to qualitatively label the posts using a codebook. We adapt the codebook that was specifically created by Lopez and Butler for local online spaces and use inductive open coding to incorporate community surveillance specific codes. The codebook we settled on includes the topic of the post, the role of the poster, and the communication tactic that has been used by the poster. The researchers iteratively labeled about 340 posts and reached high inter-rater agreement between themselves. As part of this work, we explored using GPT-4 to apply this analysis, since we sought to develop an extensible framework that demonstrates using automated methods to code user-generated text. After further validation, we were indeed able to apply the qualitative codes using GPT-4 to all of the posts and reached a final inter-rater reliability of over 0.65 for all codes. This was deemed sufficient for further quantitative and qualitative analysis. We also associated quantitative labels to each post, in particular the gentrification index of the neighborhood a post was posted to. We used data from the Urban Displacement Project that was created in 2019, which collaborated with local community organizations to create a precise Atlanta gentrification map. Overall, we code each neighborhood as either being not gentrified, gentrifying, or exclusive. Here we've shown a figure of the Nextdoor neighborhoods and how they overlap with the Urban Displacement Project data. We use multiple correspondence analysis, or MCA, to explore relationships between the codes. Crucially, MCA allows us to incorporate both qualitative and quantitative variables into the same analysis in the same visual space. We interpret the relationships between related codes in two-dimensional space to converge on a typology, as well as leveraging our expertise that we gained from applying the codes. Ethical considerations were really key to this work in particular because the corpus includes particularly high rates of self-disclosure. So posters were frequently giving out their phone numbers, email addresses, or other personal information on Nextdoor. In particular, when we collected the data, we conducted privacy-preserving data collection where we scrubbed numbers, emails, phones, names, and we also hashed poster information so that we as researchers could not access this information in our dataset. Before any external processing through ChatGPT or any other tooling, we manually reviewed all posts and scrubbed specific intersections that people were mentioning so that no personally identifiable information and no specific geolocation could be associated with any of the posts. And here we show one example post before the scrubbing was completed and one example post after. We now introduce the main findings. So as a summary, the main topics that we observe are first, criminal or suspicious person, not applicable, and theft. We also see that people are using specific tactics when they talk or conduct community surveillance on Nextdoor. 70% of posts describe some sort of personal experience that a poster has had. Almost half are expressing a personal opinion. 41% are soliciting information or action from the Nextdoor audience. About 1/3 are calling for general vigilance, and 10% include a physical description of a subject described. Using the MCA, we are able to visualize how our codes relate to each other in two-dimensional space. The first dimension is visualized here on the x-axis, and it distinguishes between specific crimes to the left versus community concerns to the right. So to the left, we see posts about things like sexual crimes, criminal or suspicious person, or thefts. Whereas to the right, we see posts about police activity, noise, and guns, which are deemed to be more communal concerns. The second dimension is visualized on the y-axis, and it separates neutral observers at the bottom from emotional advocates at the top. The lower half of the graph is mostly posts that are made in a neutral voice, whereas negative posts sit somewhere in the middle, and positive posts are closer to the top of this visualization. We can also visualize how individual posts might map onto this space. So the graph to the right displays every community surveillance post and where it would sit in our visualization. We synthesize the individual observations as being divided into 3 distinct clusters, which I will dive into in the following slides. The first cluster is to the left, and it's comprised of posts that seem to be about specific crimes. So these posts are about sexual crimes or suspicious persons, thefts, and they can include a description of the subject, are often phrased as a personal experience, often promote neighborhood vigilance, and they're more negative in tone, generally speaking. For example, individuals may be posting about someone suspicious that they saw breaking into cars on a specific street, sharing what the person was wearing, and then they will urge their neighbors to watch out. That would be a pretty typical post that we would see occupying this space in the 2D visualization. The second cluster is to the top right, and it consists of posts which are made by emotional advocates posting about communal concerns. These posts are more positive. They can be posted by an admin or an organizer, and their subject can be not applicable, which suggests that they may not always be about crimes, but can be more broad in nature. So, for example, community organizers may be asking people to join a local event that is going on. The third cluster, which is to the bottom right, consists of communal concerns that are often made by neutral observers. These posts are often phrased more neutrally. They might be about more general concerns, such as police activity and noise, and are less focused on promoting vigilance or expressing a personal opinion. For example, if someone observed unexplained police presence on their block, then they may post this on Nextdoor to inquire if anyone has any more information. Finally, we also visualize and analyze the vector correlations between the different gentrification indices and the codes in this two-dimensional space. So the vector for posts that are made to neighborhoods that are not gentrified points upward and slightly left. It's shown here in blue. And in particular, it's more associated with posts that are more emotional, more serious crimes like sexual crimes, guns, and criminal or suspicious persons. The vector for gentrifying neighborhoods is the most correlated to our codes of any of the neighborhood vectors and is associated with specific crimes that often express a personal experience, disclose information about the subject of the post, and promote vigilance. They're also often tied to more petty crimes such as theft or property damage. Finally, the vector for posts made to exclusive neighborhoods is significantly associated with communal concerns. So it's pointing to the right, where people are broadly wondering about issues like guns, noise, inanimate objects or animals, and police activity.
In our findings, we describe 3 patterns of community surveillance posts on Nextdoor. The first set are incident reports, where the poster describes a criminal or normatively transgressive incident involving one or more specific offenders that the poster has usually witnessed or experienced. Other themes we notice within incident reports are calling for vigilance, the poster crowdsourcing some type of response or action, or an attempt to gather more information. We organize the second type of posts as community norm formation posts. Here, the poster perceives a trend of behaviors occurring in the neighborhood that they feel may be relevant to community members, which they wish to reinforce or alter. These posts exhibit a number of motivations, but are often associated with stronger emotions from the poster where they may demand action. The third type, informative posts, are where Nextdoor users has some information they view as important to pass along to the broader community for seemingly altruistic motivations. We can further break these down as local news reports, information shared by a local authority figure, or general knowledge construction posts. In this presentation, we highlight 3 discussion points, but recommend you to read our paper for more. The first is the observable change in types of crime from poorer neighborhoods to wealthier neighborhoods. As neighborhoods become wealthier, though they continue to discuss crime at seemingly similar rates, the specific crimes they discuss shift from more violent crimes to petty crimes. Next, our dimensions also highlight the differences between specific crimes and community-based concerns. By this, we mean that more exclusive neighborhoods are particularly associated with communal concerns, maybe highlighting that within such exclusive neighborhoods, there are more opportunities for community discussion. This is also further supported by prior work where it was found that geographic communities that are already rich in social capital may become richer, and those communities poor in social capital may remain poor. And finally, neighborhoods that are currently gentrifying are strongly associated with posts that publicly disclose information about perceived outsiders, particularly for petty crimes, and often call for general vigilance. The dimensions identified in this study have implications for the ways that online social media are reinforcing socioeconomic gentrification patterns and continuing to exclude minoritized populations. The first practical implication for our work is related to how Nextdoor may mitigate harms within communities. Our findings and analyses demonstrate communities observe and respond to their neighbors as social cues, and that these shifts relate to neighborhood gentrification trends. Nextdoor may be able to regulate the prevalence of divisive content by introducing stronger moderation tools. To combat othering and social exclusion, for example, community-appointed neighborhood moderators, representative of a given neighborhood's diversity, is one explicit path forward. Our methods are another practical takeaway. In this work, we demonstrate the successful use of a codebook applied at scale using an LLM to tag qualitative social media posts. We thank you for your time in listening to our presentations, and we thank our collaborators and encourage you to read our work. Thanks.